in the name of personal injury law.
Millions of people drive on Michigan roadways every day, and we hope that the drivers are doing everything possible to keep themselves and their passengers safe. But we do know that laws get broken. In fact, you might find yourself in a situation where you ask yourself, did I just break the law? Did I do something legal right now? So today we have with us Michigan auto accident attorney Steve Sinas with the Sinas Dramus Law Firm to talk to us about the Michigan rules of the road. Welcome back, Steve.
Thanks for having me. Yes, so we're here to talk about the Michigan rules of the road. Those rules are established in this extensive law known as the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code. So we're here to answer specific questions about whether certain acts when we're operating a vehicle are legal or illegal pursuant to the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code.
Great. So we hear a lot about distracted driving, and we think a lot of texting while driving. Does that include reading your text messages?
Yes. Reading, texting, or sending any type of message through your phone is illegal if you're operating a motor vehicle code. So you cannot do that. There are some exceptions if you're reporting a crash, but you should just understand the basic rules. You can't do that if you're operating a vehicle. The penalties, though, aren't that severe. It's $100 for the first offense and then $200 for subsequent offenses. So not too severe in the penalties. Perhaps they should be more severe. However, if you cause a crash as a distracted driver, then the penalties certainly are much more severe than the financial fines and can include misdemeanors and maybe even felonies in certain situations.
Right. So what about talking on the phone while you're driving?
Any adult can talk on their cell phone while driving. But if you are a teen with a graduated license level 1 or 2, you cannot talk on the phone. And if you're found to be talking on the phone, it's a violation, and that could further delay you getting your full license. So,
and maybe you get in trouble with your parents too.
Right. So don't be tempted. Don't talk on the phone if you're operating a car and if you're a teen without a full license.
So let's switch gears. Under the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code, at what age do we need to be buckling up in the back seat or not?
Okay, so first of all, let me just state in the front seat, everybody, no matter what your age is, you have to wear a seatbelt. But in the back seat, anyone over the age of 16 does not have to wear a seatbelt. Furthermore, there's this additional rule that if you're under the age of 8 or under the height of 4 feet 9, you have to be in some type of approved booster based on your height. So everybody should wear their seatbelt in the back seat. We've seen horrible crashes where people fly through the windshield because they don't have their seatbelt on the back seat. But there is this odd reality of the law that if you're over the age of 16, you don't have to wear a seatbelt in the back seat.
So what about leaving children in the car? Is it legal to leave your children in the car for 5 minutes while you run into the Quickie Mart?
The best practice is to not leave your kids in the car. But if you can say that leaving your kids under the age of 6 does not cause them any risk of harm or it's reasonable given the situation, perhaps it's not illegal. But you're really running the line there. So if you have a child under the age of 6, they can be supervised by somebody older than 13. But we've seen lots of situations where kids are left unattended and bad things happen. So you just don't want to do that.
And with emergency vehicles, such as ambulance and police vehicles, do we have to pull over when we see them?
Yeah, no matter what direction they're coming in. So if it's in your lane of travel, if they're coming from behind you, or if they're ahead of you, if you're close to them, and if they're coming the opposite direction, you should just think, I have to pull over.
Even if it's a divided freeway, or?
Yes. Well, if it's divided freeway, then it's different.
Okay.
But when you're on a 2-lane road and it's coming from the opposite direction, you have to pull over. You have to look around, and you shouldn't stop at an intersection. So you should move forward beyond the intersection if you happen to be in one, and then pull over safely as soon as you can.
And when there's an emergency vehicle stopped at the side of the road with their lights flashing, what are we supposed to do under the Motor Vehicle Code?
So if you're coming upon an emergency vehicle and it's on the side of the road, you need to drop your speed to 10 below the speed limit. The law requires you to do that. And you're also required to move over if you can. If you can't move over, you're supposed to pass that emergency vehicle as safely as possible, giving them as much distance as possible.
So in Michigan, we deal with a lot of snow and ice. What is required of us about clearing off our vehicle of snow and ice before we drive?
So the issue is, are you going to drive your car safe? And also, is your car going to cause harm to others? The Motor Vehicle Code does require you to clear off ice and snow from your vehicle because it can fly off and cause damage to someone else's vehicle. So you do have that obligation to clean it off. And furthermore, it's just not safe if you're not cleaning off your windshield and your windows of ice and snow before you drive.
So with respect to traffic signals, if there's a yellow light, do we have to stop? Are we allowed to go through?
You can go through if you cannot stop safely. And so one way of understanding the rule is there's no way you can say it's legal to speed through a yellow, or I'm sorry, to speed up through a yellow. So if you're at a yellow and you're saying I'm going to speed up to beat the yellow, then it's probably technically illegal. You do need to try to slow down. Now, if you're that driver and you know that, okay, the yellow just came on, I can just keep my speed and go through, then you probably should do so.
Okay. So we've all had the situation where somebody's following us a little bit too closely. What is the law about how close the vehicles are supposed to be from each other when they're driving?
The person who's behind the other car has the obligation to travel at a distance that allows them to stop if they have to. They have to travel at a reasonably and prudent distance that allows them the opportunity to stop. So if you find yourself in a rear-end crash and you think to yourself, well, that car stopped too suddenly, I wasn't expecting it. The law requires you to be the one to stop. So you have to think about that when you're traveling close behind other vehicles.
So when I learned how to drive, we had a 2-second rule. Like you have to count to 2 and you pass the point that the car ahead of you did. Is that kind of the rule of thumb still?
Yeah, I mean, most people probably are traveling too close to vehicles in front of them. We probably all do it. But whether it's 2 seconds, you got to ask yourself, how fast am I going? And could I really stop if that car all of a sudden just slammed on its brakes?
Right.
So.
Okay. So here's another one. You're on a multi-lane road, and is there a law that governs which lane you're supposed to drive in when you have an option of 1 or 2 or 3 lanes?
You're technically supposed to travel in the right lane. You can use the left lane to pass. So, you know, when you're out there traveling on the highway, don't think you can just stay in the left lane. You get back in the right lane when you can. There's actually a provision in the Motor Vehicle Code that requires that.
Now, we share the road with a lot of different kinds of vehicles, and one of those vehicles is school buses.
Yep.
Do we only have to stop when the red, the stop sign comes out on the school bus?
No, when a school bus is stopped, traffic from both directions needs to stop until the school bus is no longer stopped.
If it's flashing red, or does it?
No, if the school bus is stopped, you need to stop.
Okay.
And if the school bus is stopped, letting kids out, you need to stop, whether you're on either side of the road. The only exception is if there's a boulevard between your car and the school bus.
So it's obvious that drinking alcohol and driving is something that we should not do. It's not safe. But what about prescription drugs?
So first of all, people should understand that you can just have maybe 2 drinks and be above the alcohol limit. It's 0.08, which is not that high. So you can be illegal operating a vehicle with just a couple drinks. The same is true with any type of controlled narcotic. When you talk about prescription drugs, you're talking about something that gets a little bit more of a gray area because people have a prescription.
So, last question. How do violations of the Motor Vehicle Code affect a auto negligence claim?
So a violation of Motor Vehicle Code is something that comes up in a criminal context because of criminal penalties. But in the auto context, it can be really important, especially if there's an at-fault driver claim and you're able to show the at-fault driver violated the Motor Vehicle Code.
Great. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
In the Name of Personal Injury Law is brought to you by the Sinas Law Firm.